Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. And every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe, or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. So I hope you enjoyed that reading of Shakespeare's Sonnet 18, one of the most famous poems ever written. So what he's talking about, if you need any explanation, at least so far as I can offer one, is he's at the time it was quite fashionable to write the sonnets, and particularly love poems in the form of a sonnet, that often would compare the poet's beloved, the object of their affection, with things like the sun, a summer's day, as this poem references, all kinds of very beautiful romantic things that often in reality became cliches. So in many of the sonnets, Shakespeare takes some of these cliches and kind of tries to turn them on their head. So there's another famous sonnet, "My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun," which kind of follows a similar format to this one, where he's saying his mistress, the person his lover, is not actually like the sun, and it's better that way. And then this one kind of follows a similar approach. So he's saying, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate." So shall I compare you to a summer's day? No, thou, are more lovely and more temperate. So temperate, if you don't know, means like mild. So he's kind of saying summer's, it's hot, it makes you sweaty, it's a bit icky. It's not very pleasant. But his lover is actually better than a summer's day, is really what he's saying. He's saying this cliche doesn't really express the truth. It's not adequate to convey the imperfect beauty of the lover. So rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. So rough winds shake the darling buds, so like the lovely buds of these trees are shaken by the wind in summer, which is quite inconvenient and uncomfortable, is the implication. Unlike my lover, who's a human, who's not perfect, who's not lovely all the time, who's not some romantic ideal, but is all the more complete for being a human, and a flawed, complex human. And so it goes on like this. Then he kind of changes the kind of line of thinking. So, but thy eternal summer shall not fade. So the summer I'll create for you is what he's saying. So nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So the eternal lines, of course, this poem, the lines that Shakespeare himself writes. And so he'll create an everlasting summer for his lover, simply by writing a poem that will be passed on from generation to generation. So he can create something much better than just summer. He can immortalize the lover, the young man, in in classic lines, which is, after all, exactly what has happened. You know, sometimes when you hear these kind of boasts, you're like, oh yeah, of course. But obviously this is Shakespeare, so it actually worked. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. This, of course, being the poem you just read. So it's a bit of a it's kind of like a bit of a complicated self-referential mind game. So he's talking about the poem he's writing as he writes it, and how this poem will give life to thee forever. So give life to you, my lover, so long as this poem itself lives, so long as it's read, in other words, because the poem writing lives so long as it's read. And so long as men can breathe, their eyes can see. So in other words, he's being a bit, it's kind of a bit of a grandiose statement, a self-consciously one. He's saying, so long as men can breathe, so as long as there will be people around, in other words, or eyes can see, the same thing. So as long as there are eyes to see, so in other words, as long as humanity exists, so long lives this. So as long as all that humanity exists, so also does this poem. So as long as there are humans, they'll want to read this poem, is really what he's saying. So it's obviously, there's no room for false modesty here, but it is in fact what has happened so far, shown by the fact that we still read it, and it's one of the most famous poems, at least in English, to this date. So yeah, it's basically saying, in short, that I don't want to compare you to summer, because summer is a cliche. It's an idealized version of love. It doesn't convey all the full complexity and kind of like, messiness, basically, that comes with loving someone. Because we love someone not because they're perfect like summer, not because they represent an ideal, but because the opposite of anything. Because we love them because of who they are, because of their humanity, their complexity and contradictory kind of state. So he's saying, I don't want to compare you to that, but even so, I'll do one better than that, and give you an eternal summer, through writing this poem that people want to read for all time. As long as humans are around, they want to read this poem to be reminded why love, is beyond just being compared to cliches, that, such as the summer's day, that don't really capture any of the kind of complexity and profundity of human love. So yeah, I hope that helped explain as best I can. And hope to see you in another video.